The Utah Jazz get blasted by the Golden State Warriors, losing by 40. Some of it troubling, some of it reality, and some of it an opportunity for growth. It's next on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz. It is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube, and we have a free daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com to subscribe to the Locked On Jazz free daily newsletter as well. To the everydayers, you're the best. Thank you very much. Here's what we're doing on today's show. We'll, in reverse order, take a first late game watch look just at two games, Clippers, Denver, and Lakers, Kings. We'll look at I watched all of the Dallas Mavericks yesterday. We'll preview the Mavericks. They're doing some really, really interesting things with how Jason Kidd is building this team right now and the way that they are playing with the different combinations of their three stars. Will Hardy at practice didn't get on the floor. He had the team watch the entire 40-point loss to the Golden State Warriors and discuss it. We'll talk about why, what came up out of that, and we'll start by reviewing the blowout by the Golden State Warriors of the Utah Jazz right now. All right, the first thing is the Jazz are just having a miserably difficult time dealing with pressure. I went back to rewatch the opening 4 minutes of the third quarter before Will Hardy benches the entire group. So to me, the biggest moment of the game is 4 minutes into the third quarter. We're already down by 20, and Will benches all five starters. There's a 5 bench players in for 5 starters. And I went back to rewatch those 4 minutes. And there's a play that summarizes the entire night. Collin Sexton is coming left to right on a pick and roll, and Keyonte George is supposed to set the first pick. And Keyonte George gets pushed by Steph Curry so far off the spot. Keontae's on one leg. Keyonte comes nowhere close to executing the play, to getting to Collin Sexton in any way, shape, or form, because he's physically being just driven off his spot. Then Lowry, with Draymond bodying him the whole way, can't quite get to where he's supposed to get to. Draymond then switches out on Collin at 35 feet. We're 5 to 8 feet off of where this play is supposed to, maybe even 10 feet off of where this play is supposed to start. And now Collin's backing up one-on-one, trying to figure out how he's going to drive Draymond. It really summarizes kind of the night. A little bit what we saw in Portland and a little bit what we saw in Memphis too. The pressure defense up on the Jazz, physically pressure, pushing guys, holding them, knocking off their spots, is making it so the Jazz are having a hard time executing what they want to get. Now, what's difficult here, quite honestly, is that in a lot of cases, particularly with our guys aren't as strong as they are. So they are going to get physically pushed off. Like, this is where I say some of it's disturbing, and I'll get to that in a second. Some of it's reality, and some of it's a learning mechanism. The reality is that in a lot of circumstances, our guys aren't as physically gifted, talented right now, or mature than the guys who are guarding them, and so they are physically outdone, or they are skilled outdone, which gets to the learning point. Will Hardy's point, and we'll get to this in the rewatching the game a little bit, is, and he said this after the game, like, you can't get deflated. It's hard. This is the irony, is that we really can't get deflated because the other team's probably more talented, more experienced, and has more continuity than we do. So you really, really can't afford to be deflated and have anything other than the most intense, full-out effort at all times, or else it's going to get really ugly, really bad, really fast. When you have that kind of pressure, you've got to move the ball. But if your Keyonte can't get set, Lowry doesn't get there, and Sexton's 35 feet out, well, the angles by which to move the ball completely fall apart. The disturbing part, I went back and rewatched the first 3 minutes of that third quarter. And quite honestly, Keyonte can't have 3-minute stretches like that anymore. He just can't. He's played too much. He's too mature now. I know he's still 20, but like it gets hard, and he throws away the inbound pass to Colin because there's someone pressuring him, and he throws it up over his head, and he can't get the ball to him. Like they're just that 3-minute sequence for Keyonte was particularly poor. Opening play of the half, doesn't seem quite ready. Curry gets open for a three. And what's interesting about this, by the way, is that like the next play down, the Jazz do a lot of good stuff. Like Kessler gets an offensive rebound and nice ball movement, and Marketing gets a 3-point play. And then Keyonte kind of recovers and does a really nice job and draws an offensive foul from Curry because he's up in on his body. But then there's the play I'm talking about where they go left to right. None of them get set, and it's a jump ball. And then Draymond Green hits a three out of it. And then the Jazz next possession's completely a mess. Everyone's marked up their spot, and Markkanen ends up turning it over, but it's actually not his fault at all, frankly, because of the way the play played out. It was Lowry was put in a position where he had no chance. And Curry hits an 18-foot jumper. Then the Jazz run through a play where Keyonte and Hendricks are standing in the exact same spot. There's no spacing, so the play blows up when the ball goes to Hendricks. Keyonte's literally standing right next to him. I don't know who's right or wrong, but they can't both be sitting there. And Hendricks hits a three. Misses a three. Kessler gets a rebound, and Draymond rips it away from him. The Jazz win the jump ball. They move the ball. They can't get into a set again. Markkanen throws a 15-footer up, and, they make a nice play later. The next thing you know, it's a putback dunk on a Curry drive, which was pretty poor defense. Frankly, Keyonte then throws away the inbound pass, leads to a three, and then Will's seen enough. And so it was a really bad sequence. And all for a reason, but 5 guys got taken out of the game. But I'm going to, for all the compliments I've given Keyonte and how excited I am, this was a 3-minute stretch. It's really just like, it can't happen. I mean, even there's a play where he just doesn't get in the play, and his answer is just to try to bullet an incredibly low percentage, one-handed, left-handed pass to Lowry down below the basket under pressure with Draymond that if you were a quarterback and through wouldn't make any sense. Lowry does an incredible job catching it, and then gets trapped in the corner, gets credit for a turnover. That's on Key. So that was a really, there's the disturbing. And maybe that Keyonte can still have that bad a 3-minute stretch. The learning point is, okay, this is what you have. This is the level you have to play at all times, and with this level of intensity, because this league is hard, but also because we're short stuff. And so if you don't play with utter focus and attachment and that kind of effort for 3 minutes, it's a disaster. And I think that's where there are some things that are, I think, worth mentioning in this game that aren't disastrous. But I think the Warriors are playing incredibly, incredibly fast. I mean, incredibly fast. And it had to be hard to play against. They're getting really good starts. Tied early with Memphis. I think they led 16-5 in this game. They're coming out and executing game plans really well, and then they're getting knocked off of what they're doing. And that's where Will's comment is it's going to be hard and you got to fight through it. Another really good positive right now is that Lowry is drawing 9.5 fouls a game. His isolation game is having a hard time right now. He's had 7 isolations. He's, I think, scored 1 bucket off all of them. But he's doing a really good job of playing physically and drawing about 9 fouls a game right now. So you're seeing some of that from Lowry. The shooting was a miserable night of shooting. I think this is another example of where the team is still trying to find itself a little bit. Will Hardy said, the first night, remember, we took the fewest amount of threes of anyone in the league. We took the most mid-range shots. In the pregame conference, he said, hey, we just talked to the guys. They're like, you're not getting 45 open threes a game. You're going to have to squeeze some off. And it looked to me, that's the right coaching, by the way. it looked to me a little bit like they were playing the game to squeeze off 45 threes, not necessarily to make shots. Like that's the next variation. It's like you got to remember, oh yeah, the point of me taking the shot is to actually make it, not just to squeeze it off. And it looked a little bit to me like they were so dead set on squeezing off 45 threes that like they kind of forgot about the idea that they were supposed to make them. And that's just the progression, right? Like, okay, now we figured out how to get our shots. Now let's go make them. I know it sounds funny, but you kind of can see that happening. So again, as I led the show, like there's some lessons, there's some things that were disturbing, focus and are disturbing, and then there's a bunch of teaching moments. And I think we're just seeing a progression of a team that's going to have some really tough nights, but and that was one of them. But I thought that was interesting. What's really interesting is Will Hardy made them watch the whole game as one after on practice day. They sat there for a 2-hour film session watching him. Why would he do it? And what's the value of it? Next on Locked on Jazz. Today's edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street. Oh, wait a second. I love my Hyundais, but I want to tell you about Chevy today. I lied to you about that. It's brought to you today. Mondays are brought to you by Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross and in Logan's. Gotta love the Murdochs. Over 80 plus years in Utah, making sure you have the no regrets experience that's the signature of the Murdochs. And at Chevy, they can do it with their great trucks. They can do it with their SUV line. They can do it with their Corvette, or they can do it with their ski passes you get right now when you buy a car at Murdoch Chevy. The Silverado and the Colorado are trucks that are unequal to Chevy truck. It's Americana. And right now, with the combination of Murdoch's in Utah, Chevy and Americana, you can't get a better combination for your trucks with the Silverado and the Colorado. And the SUV lineup with the Utah County assault vehicles, the Suburban and the Tahoe, all the way down to the Blazer and the great tracks that they've built as well. It's all at Murdoch Chevy. If you're going to stop by in Woods Cross or Logan, please email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's got some special deals for you right now, and FanDuel is the America's #1 sportsbook. It's the official sportsbook of Locked On. With the NBA ready and the NFL in action, new customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. A FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place bets on the NFL and the NBA all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, and you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page when you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today, and you'll start with a $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports partner of the NFL, as well as official sports partner of Locked On. FanDuel line for tonight's Jazz game and the rest of the NBA going on right now. Good night of NBA action tonight, by the way. The Jazz are a 11-point underdog in Dallas. Phoenix is a 3.5-point favorite against LA Lakers. That should be a really good one. Sacramento plays tonight. They're a 12.5-point favorite at home against Portland. They'll come play with us the next night in Salt Lake City at Delta Center. Knicks and the Cavaliers are the marquee game of the night, and the Knicks are a 2.5-point favorite at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Boston plays Milwaukee, who lost last night, and is a 9.5-point favorite. Amazing. Boston's just so good right now. That is all at FanDuel.com. All right, Will Hardy made them go watch an entire game. Why? Well, a few reasons. I'm going to go with a business angle here for a second first before I get into what Will told us. By the way, the new Locked On Jazz daily newsletter is out and available for you and free every single day in your inbox. So make sure you subscribe at lockedondaily.com. Go click on Locked On Jazz and any other team you might care about. All right. From a business standpoint, if something goes disastrously wrong and you have a concern inside your building, your office, whatever it is, that it's going to happen again, and they're not sure why it's happening, oh my gosh, this is what we are experiencing, you better address it head on. And I think the Jazz players left Delta Center on Friday night going, oh my gosh, are we going to lose by 40 every night? Is this what we're about to embark upon? And by just addressing it head on by Will Hardy, I think he did something really, really smart. This is where Will's been at his best and maybe had to be at his best coaching this team is communicating during difficult situations with the veterans last year after the trades, with the team when they started terribly last year, and he turned them around in Portland, finding the best out of a unit. This is where Will's at his best. So I think he had to address the fear that, oh dear, we're going to lose by 30 every night, and this is going to be awful. The second thing I think he has to do is John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, the veterans whose roles have changed, have been, like Will said it the other day, like the youngsters actually energy through camp carried the way, and now it's up to the veterans that they need to do it. If things get hard and go awry and we start losing by 20 a lot, be really easy for John Collins and Jordan Clarkson to just kind of go do their own thing. They haven't shown signs of that. That's not generally who they are as people, but it just would be a veteran in that circumstance, not necessarily John or Jordan, but a veteran in that circumstance would be very easy for them to do that. By having an entire film session where everyone talks, as Will shared with us, and everyone explains their points, and one of Will's big points is that you can speak up. It's okay. You're not going to get cracked. He forces investment by everyone. So the young guys who are uncertain to invest now invest, and the veterans who are uncertain about investing because they're not really sure if this is for them and whether they're being used the way they want to be used, they invest. It's really smart. Not surprising coming from Will. So it's a really interesting coaching move. It's where Will's at his best. So they got together, they watched the entire game, no edits, no cuts. And also edits always lead a player to think, yeah, you're just out to get me. He asked for three things: competitiveness, urgency, and body language. So a little bit in the first session of today, or segment or whatever of today's show, we talked about competitiveness and urgency. The Jazz, like tonight, Dallas's point guard is better. Dallas's shooting guard is better. Dallas's power forward is better. And Dallas's center is about average and the same. And so you better match their competitiveness and their urgency. And you probably need to surpass it, because if you come with less effort than Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving, oh dear God. Right? The other one is that you're playing Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So when it goes wrong, chill. Just play to the next play. Play to the next play. He talked about a section in the second quarter where there were just back-to-back turnovers, and we acted like the world had come to an end. They're earlier in the second quarter, John Collins and Jordan Clarkson commit turnovers, or they're late in the quarter where Collins Sexton and Keyonte George commit turnovers. Both the Collins section and the Keyonte George turnovers lead to slam dunks on the other side. Will also talked about that you just continually watched the film and saw them beating them to the spot. I thought that was true. In my play-by-play call, early on, I said the Jazz are just playing faster than the Warriors. And then shortly thereafter, I said, wow, the Warriors are just playing faster than the Jazz. And the Warriors, throughout the game, it was clear that there would be a rebound or be a ball, and the Warriors would go get it while the Jazz waited for it to come to them. That's the urgency. That's the competitiveness. And Will thinks the body language is particularly important. I want to caution you right there, because I know where you just went. You went to Keyonte and some of our youngsters. I'm not certain of this. Will never says who. I'm not going to get an answer. I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure he's not asking for better body language from his veterans. I think there might be some real leadership here where he needs his veterans to give him better body language than he's getting right now. That, yes, Keyonte's body language on the night where he was 0 for 9 and 3 for 18 wasn't great. And I have said it today. The opening 3 minutes of the third quarter is as bad a sequence as I've seen from Keyonte in a long, long time. From a focus and an energy and yeah, it's really bad. Like, I don't call out segments of players very often. But that's actually not a body language thing. That was just like, I don't know, but that was disturbing. But I actually think the body language call may not be on the youngsters. I could be wrong here. I don't think so, though. I am seeing Jordan, who had a hard time dribbling the basketball against the Warriors' pressure, being super frustrated. And there is an element here, again, where Jordan and John, they're playing, so they're the two, could, again, I don't want to say, Jordan is such a great dude, and John's such a positive energy guy. It's hard for me. It sounds like I'm saying they are doing this. So a veteran player in the same circumstance as these two are, when things get tough, could very easily separate themselves from the team. Well, this isn't my fault. I have established career success in my lifetime. And so therefore, the fact that I'm struggling right now or in this circumstance is because these guys aren't good enough. That's a very easy thing to have happen here. And that's when the body language goes. And that's where when Will Hardy's saying, I need body language, I don't think he's just talking about the youngsters. Certainly, we talked all last year, Walker Kessler's got to change ends better. I think he's been great at that this year. Guys have to change ends better after mistakes. But I think that's as much our veteran players as it is our youngsters. So don't do what I think you did, because I did it too. Where I hear that and then I think about it and I'm like, I'm not totally convinced that that's what he's talking about. The last one about this film session I thought was so great by Will is this team is young and inexperienced, and it's got to feel the game. And Will's point of the film session was, hey, if Buddy Hield's just hit back-to-back threes, like, you got to make the transition to get out to him for the third one. You got to feel the game. But also, if they just suddenly scored 4 in a row, or 5 in a row, don't force a pass to Lowry in traffic with Draymond all over him on a pass that's going to be completed 20% of the time. Execute a play. Execute a play. And I think that's a lot of what Will's talking about. That is Will's trying to get done in that extended film session where you're not editing it is, yeah, competitiveness, urgency, body language, but also feel for the game. Understand the game flow. Don't isolate just that moment. Understand the context by which everything's happening. I don't know if it's going to lead to an extra win or an extra effort. Or really, really interesting coaching, and really makes a lot of sense to me. He addressed the fear. He's forcing buy-in. He's not allowed. He understands the potential pitfalls down the road of the path that the team's going on and developing the 7 players that are 23 and under. And he's addressing and dealing with it really well right now. Watch the Dallas Mavericks yesterday against the Phoenix Suns, or their game. It's fascinating what Jason Kidd is doing with the 3 stars and how he's using them. We'll talk about that, and they're really good. It's next on Locked On Jazz. Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. When you think of a ticketing app, what do you want? Well, I want to know whether my seats are good is the first thing. The second thing I want to know is I want to see my seat view, because I don't want to end up there and be surprised. I've had that happen to me before. Number 3, I want to know all-in pricing. I don't want a surprise. I don't want to be excited and at the last second be like, oh, gosh. And the other one is when there's a multitude of apps out there for tickets, I don't want to be searching 4 different apps on my phone at one time to figure out whether I got the best price. And these questions have all been answered perfectly by Game Time. Okay, first thing is the Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Pretty great. They give you an all-in pricing toggle feature. Flip it on. You then have no surprises at checkout. Gives you a panoramic view of your seat, so you have no surprises. And gives you the lowest price guarantee. They'll credit you 110% of the difference if it's not, and there's a better price somewhere else. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, EDON NBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. It is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Daily newsletters are out and free, as is everything with Locked On. So make sure you go to LockedOnDaily.com and subscribe to the Locked On Jazz newsletter. All right, the Dallas Mavericks have basically different combinations. So Luka, Kyrie, and Klay all on the floor together, and they run one offensive package. And this offensive package is a lot about early in the games, getting Klay on pin downs and getting a lot of activity and energizing Klay. And then Klay's the first one out, and he goes out with Kyrie. And then Luka comes back, and it's just purely a high pick and roll package. And then Kyrie comes back, sometimes with Klay, sometimes without, by himself, and it's a pure left wing pick and roll package for Kyrie. Kyrie doesn't like the middle of the floor. So Luka loves the middle of the floor because he's 6'9", 6'8", 225, 230 pounds, and he can work in the middle of the floor, and he can make plays, and he can distribute, and he can lob it to Gafford, he can lob it to Lively, he can do all these things. Kyrie doesn't like the middle of the floor. Kyrie likes a clear side, left side, and if you look at Kyrie's shot chart, it's all on the left side. And then they'll come back with Klay Thompson, and they'll go back to with Kyrie. When they have both Kyrie, then they'll go Kyrie and Luka, and that's Luka initiates an early pick and roll. If it's not there, it becomes a side pick and roll or a pin down for Kyrie. That's kind of what they did all of last year. And then when Klay comes back, they're running it on multiple. It's going to work. It's really clear that Jason Kidd's got it figured out how it's going to work. The other thing is that in 2 games, Klay Thompson is getting 2 more open threes or 3 ball shots with a defender not within 4 feet than he got the last 3-4 years in Golden State. So Klay's getting 2 more shots from 3 with a defender not within 4 feet than he was getting the last few years in Golden State. The other thing is inside these packages, they're throwing the fewest passes of anyone in the league. Their game against Phoenix was the fewest passes thrown by any team at any point all season long. It's a lot of like action into shot. That might not deem well for the playoffs because you're probably going to need secondary action. But it is action into shot. It's Kyrie left wing pick and roll, driving. He makes a pass. They take a shot. He takes the shot. Luka high pick and roll. They got the advantage. You come over. He makes a pass. They take a shot. They set something up. Klay comes off a pin down. He takes the shot. Not a lot of passes. They look great. They lost to Phoenix in the game that I watched. I thought they looked great. I thought they would be the second best team in the Western Conference. Phoenix would be 3rd. Minnesota would be 4th. Oklahoma City would be 1. I still think that's true. They really look terrific. I have no idea how we're getting stops tonight. Like, it's pretty potent. Like the best pick and roll in the NBA last year is Luka Doncic on a pick and roll. Okay, well, like we can put it, Scott Morrison, who's doing a great job, can put together any scheme he wants, but that's brutal, right? Luka Doncic on a pick and roll is 1.05 points. Luka Doncic with Derek Lively on a pick and roll is 1.08. Kyrie on the left wing is deadly. 50, 40, 90 player. Klay Thompson coming around. Yeah. The other one for the Jazz is schematically for the Jazz is the first thing they want to take away is the rim. The second thing they want to take away is the corner 3. And they kind of they're willing to give up the above the break 3. Okay, except for the fact that this team now has 3 guys that shoot the above the break 3 over 40% or at 40%. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and Klay Thompson. You have the number 1 pull-up shooter in the 3-point shooter in the NBA, in Luka Doncic. He took 585 pull-ups last year, and Steph Curry only took 448. So Luka took almost 140 more pull-ups than anybody off the bounce threes than anyone in the league. Klay Thompson last year took 543 catch and shoots, second most of anyone in the NBA behind Dante DiVincenzo. Here's what's really interesting. Well, where are those shots coming from? Easy. because the top 3 catch and shoot guys on Dallas's roster last year are no longer on the roster. Tim Hardaway, Derek Jones, and Grant Williams. Not a good answer on any of the 3, all bad shooters. And they took a combined 816 threes last year and hit 35%. Klay Thompson is getting those threes this year. Klay Thompson's 543 is replacing their 816. PJ Washington's going to be the other one who gets it. Last year, he shot 33% on catch and shoot threes. That's probably the key to their season if you want to get right to it. So it's going to be pretty fascinating, but they look great. Tonight's going to be tough. All right, late game watch. I have not gotten as many in as I wanted. Few notes. Sacramento, LA. Sacramento's really interesting to me. They're not curious to watch them tonight. Curious to see them in person. See if we can keep it close with them. It does. All right. First thing is this happened to them a few years ago, and Mike Brown figured it out. So it'll be interesting to see. And I remember a few years ago when they had their playoff run, they started really badly. They were really bad in the clutch, and then all of a sudden it was clear to me Mike Brown figured it out. And I remember coming on the show and be like, "Oh, Sacramento's figured out they're going to start winning." That's why late game watching is so great. You can kind of see a team's problems, and then if you keep watching it, whether they figure it out. So right now, Sacramento has DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, and Malik Monk, all who want their clutch game shots. But frankly, as the fulcrum of the offense is Sabonis. So the other night, early in the fourth, they really were running a lot of Sabonis and then DeMar DeRozan coming off a curl into the lane, into the mid-range for that. But they haven't figured out how to run offense and have Monk and Fox and DeRozan available because, frankly, the fulcrum needs to be Sabonis, who's then running one handoff with one of them while the other guys are sitting stationary. It's really clunky right now for Sacramento. The Laker game was incredible because LeBron scored 16 points in 3 minutes and looked as good as you've ever seen him in your whole life. It was wild. The Denver Clipper game that took place not yesterday but on Saturday was super interesting for a few reasons. One is because I do think Denver's in a lot of trouble. Russell Westbrook's not good. And, really when I ran my numbers, Denver looked terrible and the Clippers looked good because all of a sudden Denver had Russell Westbrook, and it's not that simple, but it's not that far off either. James Harden is still a basketball genius. That would be kind of one of the first things that jumped out at me, is that James Harden is still an unbelievable basketball genius. He's just literally dictating everything, in total control. They're doing some interesting things with him. He's either in a pick and roll or they actually have him coming off the corner on a pin down from a handoff from Zubac, and then it's all trying to get Jokic switched on to Harden, but it was really difficult for Denver to deal with. And then the Nuggets were playing a hard double on Harden on that pick and roll, which is then allowing Harden to get off the ball. Norman Powell had an incredible game. Nuggets are doing the usual and running everything through Jokic to the top of the circle. Their offense is not a problem. They just don't have enough talent. And Harden's just so smart. It's a 2-point game. Fast break opportunity, 30 seconds left, and Harden pushes on a 2-for-1, and he gets the call, and it was a tie game. He immediately pushes on the 2-for-1, gets himself to the line, makes both free throws. Jokic misses one, and then, that's kind of was the game. Then they had to foul. Both free throws were made, and the final play was for a three for the Nuggets for a three was a Murray three that didn't go. It went up to Jokic, and he double clutched it and missed it. But Harden was just in complete control of the game. As long as Harden is out there and still healthy and functioning, I actually think the Clippers are going to be fine. Some of the numbers I had on the Clippers were stunning to me. Watching them, not as stunning. And then they got a really nice win last night against the Warriors. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks for tuning in. Right now, please subscribe or follow if you've made it this far in the show. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much to the everydayers who do this all the time. And right now, go to LockedOnDaily.com and subscribe to the Locked On Jazz newsletter and get it for free in your inbox. Hopefully, you'll love it. All right, now on the video, we'll send you the first ever national 24/7 channel, Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. On audio, check out the new Locked On NBA twice a day.